So Square Enix just killed $140 million in greenlit projects. It also leaves everybody freaking out over like the potential remakes and stuff getting killed in this sweeping cancellation. This has me personally asking, did we truly need a remake of Star Ocean till the end of time? But let's really break it down and see if it was worth the squeeze. And I think this will also help to bring the decision by Square Enix into a more understandable light as well. I am Solace. This is Solace and Dread. We produce analytical content primarily focused on Square Enix, Nintendo, and Capcom publications. If you like nuanced discussions on gaming, consider subscribing and hit the like button to let us and YouTube know. So Star Ocean to the End of Time, or Star Ocean 3, is a PS2 release, and it's a follow-up game to the incredibly beloved Star Ocean: The Second Story. And yes, technically there was Star Ocean Blue Sphere, which was released on the Game Boy Color, but that never really came to the West, and it was kind of a pile of shit anyway. So, we're going to ignore this fact and pretend that it didn't happen for the sake of this discussion. This was a huge deal at the time. It was one of the first fully voice-acted JRPGs or on a console like ever. And it was big and expansive and clearly had a nice budget with huge quality cutscenes, and there was just a lot going for this game on its release, and it stood out in a world of turn-based JRPGs. So couple that with it being released on the best-selling console of all time, and you'll see that a lot of people had their first introduction to Star Ocean. Thus the insane nostalgia, to the point that people still clamor for a remake decades after its initial release. So let's talk about the good that this game had, or the solace. It took Star Ocean into a fully 3D format, breaking away from that kind of ugly 2D sprites on 3D background that early PlayStation games had. That style doesn't really hold up well, but even back then, it wasn't the prettiest, right? The voice acting being fully fleshed out, by the way, was like amazing. It was mind-blowing. And yeah, if you look at it now, there are some awkward pauses and things of that nature where the timing wasn't really figured it out, but it was new tech, so you kind of forgive it. The challenge on the game got turned up way higher too, and that's one of the things about Star Ocean is it's meant to be tough, and Star Ocean 3 definitely did that. I still maintain that Star Ocean 3 is actually the most difficult of the Star Ocean games. The post game isn't as dick punching as it is in 4, but overall I'd still give the crown to 3, that it was just the hardest of all of the mainline games. This game did also have some of Motoi Sakuraba's best work in his entire career. To this day, I honestly don't know if he's ever topped this OST, and hearing those tracks rearranged or even remastered would probably be beyond anything the world is ready for, and it would probably crack the Earth's crust. And the characters, right? They're all memorable, and it probably has one of the best character casts of the entire Star Ocean franchise. Even the fucking kids are acceptable and don't drive you crazy. Roger kind of sucks, but most of the interactions are great, and I don't hate them the way I do, say, Limmel in Star Ocean 4. As complimentary as we get of this game, look, I gotta level with you. I don't really think that it needs a remake. I know this is a hot take, and I know that we have a lot of Star Ocean fans in our community, but I just don't see it. And this is where we get into the dread. The voice acting, it's a little awkward and disjointed.
What are you doing out here?
Nothing really. I was passing by and saw you, so... Who was that?
And, it's old, so that means trying to remaster those old files, if they even still have them. Otherwise, completely reshooting them is the only option, and we wouldn't want those odd, awkward pauses like we had in Crisis Core, right? And the combat also had a lot of issues. I think that this would need an overhaul if they were to do a complete remake of this game, and The chain gauge would need to be addressed. And MP death, by the way, that they can scrap that shit. Who likes MP death? Who likes that? Who likes that shit? I know, there's a few of you. Whatever. Then there's things like item creation being needlessly convoluted. And then the backtracking on Elacor 2, and oh my god, it's like Paper Mario 1000-Year Door levels of bad. The running back and forth, there's no fast travel. So all of this would require an overhaul. All of that is added cost. And the grind for levels, the discovering the map where you have to run around and collect every single black square around the screen, that's insanity. The hauler minigame, there is so much that this game does not age well with or respect your time in Star Ocean 3. And all of that would need addressing. And they'd have to do that in 3D, so it's even harder. So if we're talking like a full remake, not a remaster, all of this would need to be rebuilt from the ground up, including the map, and that's a lot of cost. But that's fine. It's fine if the game was even worth doing it for. Remaking this game is kind of like reshaping a solid pile of shit. And this is where Square Enix's decision comes into play. Is the plot and the experience of this game actually so much worth the squeeze with so much work making it modernized? Shouldn't they instead focus on titles where they can pump quality in over quantity? Shouldn't they focus on titles that are not already accessible on the PlayStation 5 eShop like this game is? Because this game is accessible on the PS5. It still holds up enough to play it in its original format. It's not like playing some game that's broken in every aspect. There's dialogue in this script that is just laughable, from the way over the top Albel to the infamous twist to the final boss dialogue even. And would we really want to keep all of that? Now, that twist. I'm going to talk about the twist. And if you have never played Star Ocean 3 and you plan to play it in the near future, this is your warning. Skip to the time code on the screen because this spoiler has implications for the entire franchise, right? So this is your warning. Star Ocean 3 reveals at the start of the third act that everything that you've experienced is a video game within a video game. And that's actually a cool concept. It was just done in a really bad way. And that's the big problem with the twist, is the game, it continually raised the stakes. You're getting to a point where you're like fighting more and more epic battles and seeing more epic cutscenes and getting closer to unlocking this grand mystery just to have all of you popping out of a monitor. And then it's all like explained to you by like a random kid that you're actually just a video game character come to life, like the fucking Sims, right? And this completely subverts the player experience, diminishing everything that you've gone through up to this point. That tonal shift is criminal, and that is why that twist is so incredibly divisive. And whether or not you like the twist or not, that alone makes for the discussion around it, right? It probably would have been better received if they had taken this in a more serious tone. So again, that's what we're trying to remake here, is something that was just clownishly silly. That's what we want to remake, something that just gut punched everything. If you played the first 3 Star Ocean games, it just completely diminishes it. And then it does so even without exploring the depths of what that means, of exploring the depths of what life entails. It tiptoes into the water, but it doesn't really go head first into that discussion of whether or not digital life is still life, right? They could have gone so far with that. So I did ask this question on Twitter as well, and on YouTube, and I put up a poll, and in both cases, the Twitter poll and in the YouTube poll, more than 7 out of 10 people said that they would like to see a remake of Star Ocean 3, and they didn't just say they'd like to see it, they think that it needs it. And I just, I don't know that I agree. Personally, I don't see it. Let's take a glance. So the first one we'll pick here is combat rehaul, and I do think that the combat does need a bit of a pick-me-up. I don't know that it's aged well. I think for its time, it was great, but MP death, there's just a little bit of jankiness with the camera that I don't love. I think it's in a little too tight, and there are little things that I think that they would need to refresh to make that more friendly to, current players, right? Another comment we got on this was, while I would love to see what they do with a remake, I think resources would be better spent on a new Star Ocean game, preferably one that takes place after Till the End of Time, whether it's in the game world or the 4D world, is what I imagine Bob meant to write. Bob's a longtime community member, and I do think that it would be better to have the resources poured into a new game or a remake of a game that we never got, which is Blue Sphere. As much as I would like the 4D adaptation, I don't love that they made it a video game and less a simulation. So I think with the way I feel, I would like to see them instead put it in between Star Ocean 6 and Star Ocean 3. Because that timeline, I think that what they could do is connect Marielle Kenny to Maria Trador, and because you could then make the link that the Kenny family, who are the constant rule breakers and the UP3 rule breakers, they are the ones who broke out of their imprisonment, and that would 100% carry that line and give the Kenny family even more impact on the universe. So the X-Mute says, the combat still slaps, but updated graphics would be dope. I would not mind fast travel either. There's a ton of backpacking on Elacor 2 that's kind of pointless. Star Ocean 3 has my favorite item creation in the series, so that doesn't have to change much IMO. While I don't think that the game necessarily needs a remake, I do think that I would be okay with a remaster. Like, if I'm looking at what he's saying here, I agree, because like a remaster could still have some fixes put in place, like for example the fast travel. I feel like that's a relatively easy addition. And then Star Ocean 3, I don't love the item creation. I actually think it's my least favorite other than in Blue Sphere. I do see eye to eye with keeping it mostly the same. I don't know. I think that they would change it and make it much easier, because it just required so much tinkering and testing to produce any results if you didn't already know or have a guide. So I think that I could see them making that just a little bit more user friendly. But I'm picking up what you're putting down. I feel like you're leaning more towards a remaster than a full-on remake, and that I can get behind 100%. At least 100% more than I could them pouring the money into make a full-on remake. There's so much to address with this game, and all of that effort would go into remaking a very middle-of-the-road JRPG experience. Does that align with Square Enix's new business strategy? Is this turd even worth the polish that we are asking to be put on it? It's kind of easy to say no. Square Enix has got to find as many W's as they possibly can after taking repeated L's in Forspoken and Balan Wonderworld and Foam Stars. It's starting to rack up. This strategy of theirs makes a whole lot of sense when you consider the losses. Even the fact that their highest quality games are being bottlenecked onto the PS5, and then they are not meeting the sales expectations that they hoped for. There's no way that they're going to be entirely pleased with how Rebirth is selling. And that game is amazing. Now, I do think that a remaster of Star Ocean 3 would be acceptable, if not pleasing. But when we start getting to remake territory and talking about where the funds will be allocated, I don't think that the plot of that game or the combat experience is really worth revisiting with millions of dollars. If Star Ocean as a franchise is going to get money, it would be way better spent on remaking Star Ocean Blue Sphere and bringing it to the West, or it would be better spent on the next Star Ocean game in the series, Star Ocean 7 or whatever that may be. So I know that this is a bit of a hot take, like I said, but I just don't think that the game is that good. I like what you like, and tell me where I'm way off base here, but I think a lot of us need to take off the rose-colored glasses. That's it from me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And long live the Turtle Kingdom. People are going to hate me for that one.